Ready? Aim!
There's too many!
Anyone see my mammoth?
Stubby! Hello! Back again on a Monday. I hope everyone's well. It's been a relatively quiet week again. There's a couple of things that I'll share with people. But yeah, there's not a huge amount of news. You know, nothing really much has changed. We still don't know any more about the patch coming out. There's been a little bit more released about some of the Dreadfort units, so I'll have a little look into that today. It really isn't much, but I'll show it to you anyway because it's worth knowing about. And yeah, we'll just generally have a little bit of a kind of like think about some stuff today, as well as we'll look at some results because it's been a while since we've actually looked at any tournament results or anything like that. So yeah, we'll do all that, get some stuff done. Mikhail asks, I know you asked this the other week, Mikhail, who is Lopez Munoz? The truth is, Mikhail, I actually haven't got a clue. I haven't got a clue. I am not going to explain why this game is here. So yeah, I'll have to leave that for you one other day. But yeah, I have a game in a tournament apparently against this person. Yeah, I'll not explain it. If I explain it, it'll highlight a bug that that exists on the site. It's an indirect bug that Carlo is aware of, but yeah, it's. I don't want to explain it live. The reason I wouldn't explain it live is because people here could take advantage of it, and it would be incredibly annoying for a lot of players, and myself included, if people knew that what the bug was. So yeah, and by bug, it's not really a bug; it's a choice, and that's the problem. Is that it's not something that Carlo would fix or do anything about necessarily, especially with him working on the other site. So he knows about it. Don't worry, and it will probably be up there for a little while. Hello, Bob. Hello, Bob. Yeah. Okay then. So there's that. All right. Hello, Data. Hello, Crones. Bunker with the monocle. And look, just at that, it saw Bob and Data join, and it went poof. I lose all my pixels. I don't know why it does this. I don't know why it does this. Days like this. You just do me a favor. It's like the camera just doesn't know it's doing what it's doing. Anyway, right. What are we talking about today? Well, today we are talking about stuff and things, basically. Things and stuff. Stuff and things. No, we're going to... afternoon, Doug. Afternoon, Richard. We're going to look at some lists. And talk about some events that have run, because we haven't done that in a while. We haven't just had a look at the old historical events and just kind of gone through them, right? Afternoon, West Coast. We also have, as I say, some Dreadfort news. So, Dreadfort news-wise, what I have is this here, which I will throw into this here, because this is just not useful, and basically no one has access to this. Anyway, here you go. So, this was information that was found on, I think it was an Asmodee website somewhere. I'll have to zoom in on it. This is a comment made by someone in the Discords. I've just screenshotted it for the purposes of talking about this. So the Dreadfort Spearmen, apparently part of a back of a box description, I think. Said with their impaling spear attack, they're able to inflict the panicked condition on to opposing units in short range if they destroy one of the defending unit's ranks. Which, if you take that as a given as to what that might be in that description, is that's going to be you kill a rank and everything in short range gets panicked. Maybe. We don't know that. I don't know that for a fact, but that may be the case. So there's that. And then we have Tybalt. Description of his ability. Tybalt may use his deceitful envoy ability. Causes, which is really bad English, causes one of the opposing combat units to become vulnerable if an enemy NCU takes a tactic zone that has been targeted by him. So potentially looking at something similar to Christopher Botley, his once per game that makes vulnerable and panicked. So similar to that, or maybe like a Courtney token, or potentially like a Varys type token-esque type thing. Don't know if it's before they would do it or after or anything like that. But it could be that kind of effect, and it sounds like just a vulnerable token. This could be something where he like marks a zone at the start of the game, and if you ever take that zone, you become vulnerable or something, which I quite like the idea of that. Just a permanent don't take that zone or get punished for taking that zone. Yeah, so there you go. There's the Dreadfort kind of information there. There was some also dates leaked, or dates given for some Dreadfort stuff. But the dates given were taken down very quickly as well from the same website that had that. So yeah, don't know if they're 100% accurate, but people again saying July, August time. We're very soon in July, so I doubt it. All right then. That's all I have here for Dreadfort news. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry I couldn't bring you more news for Bolton's. Sadness. Bolton sadness. Right. The next thing we're going to look at, or the next thing I said we'd look at, is some upcoming events that I was going to bring about later on, but actually some historical events, right? So if you've not checked out the Hall of Champions recently, can we just point out, right, I'm going to talk about a topic just shortly. And I do think today's episode is going to be quite short, so just bear that in mind. I'm going to talk about something which is, like, as the game state is, as it stands, there are a lot of events being run, right? There are lots of events being run, and there are a lot of local events, right? A lot of these events, this one, what was it, 4 players, right? This one over here, 6 players. This next one down was only a 2-player event. 6 players, 18 players. That's decent size. 8 players, 28 players. Big as the GT in Madrid. This one, 8 players again. So you get a lot of these smaller events, right? And I'm not saying that's good or bad. It's good to see events at all, right? It's brilliant to see events. But really, what we need to look at is there isn't really consistency. We see free folk quite a lot. We see, decent amount of Baratheon up there, but then we come further down, you see more Night's Watch appear. There's a decent amount of Martell still. Free folk, Night's Watch, Martell, if you told me they're the 3 best factions in the game, they're winning events quite a lot, yeah, I'd say that's kind of fair enough. I'm not saying it's like a good thing, but it's kind of expected. But what you do get is you get a lot of, Targs, Lannister, Baratheon, Greyjoy winning events there. Got more mix of those. Starks getting a win up down here. I think Starks got a win up here as well, right? Again, small events, right? That's a 10-player, but even so. So you've got the other factions winning events. Now, what am I trying to say? Well, as we know, the game still has its balance issues. The game is relatively balanced, right? It's relatively balanced. It could be better. There are outliers. There are problems. Free folk, the odd thing here or there. But for faction in local play, the game is balanced enough, right? And this is where I was going with this conversation, right? Which is, it's quiet. right? Lots of events are being played, lots of people are enjoying the game, but it's quiet. We don't see much discussion anymore, which in some ways is a good thing. You know, sometimes the discussions were just inane and stupid and a waste of time. But we just don't see much discussion on the game anymore. And there are other content people making stuff. You know, we're not the only people making things. It's all of the guys we normally talk about. You know, Sunday Slaughter's still got their battle reports rolling out under Chris Henning. We've got the Red and White Scars still putting out all the content that they do. All of that, you know, Beyond Two Weirwoods is back from Gamma, fantastic. We've got Yecats doing stuff with all the faction breakdowns and everything like that. More recently, yeah, there's content. If you want to watch content, there is content out there. But the game is quiet. The game is quiet. You don't see as much activity as I think you used to regarding kind of like discussing the game in a serious manner. I'm going to touch a little bit on that today in the hopes of generating some conversation as to certain things in the game. And hopefully, like, I see the conversation I do see is like, how could this thing be better? Rather than how do we make this thing work as it stands? You know, saying how something could be better, like there's lots of easy ways to say something could be better, right? You know, I'll just give it. This is really crude. Give it +1 armor. Give it +1 morale, right? That's how you make units better. Give it +1 to hit. Give it, you know, extra attack dice on this rank. These are all ways of making a unit kind of perform better, in theory, but like they're not ways of improving the game necessarily, and they're not really solving the problem, which is how is something supposed to be used. And that's kind of what I wanted to tackle today later on when we talk at list and list building. And I'm going to try and absolutely ungarble my brain with some garbled rubbish about list building in a few minutes. I did want to focus on one individual though who's back over 2100, and that is Mikhail. And Mikhail's picked up, those of you who noticed, he's gone away from his Greyjoy roots, and he's gone up and picked up Night's Watch most recently, and it just says everything you need to know. Like, if you actually look at the number of Night's Watch games that this guy's played, right, it's very few. He plays a game here with Night's Watch like a month ago, and then he picks up Night's Watch for a tournament. Now, Mikhail might be playing some practice games and things like that outside of events, but Mikhail's one of these people who tends to record every single game that he plays, so there's a good chance that he hasn't played that many practice games with it. He goes to an event, and it's like bang, 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 bang. He maybe played this one before the event, but he goes to the event and gets 4 wins out of 4, 3 of which against Free Folk as well. So it just goes to show, like, Mikhail is up there for a reason. He can just pick up lists that are half decent and kind of run them without practice. And that's the thing, like, some of these games were quite close, but these games he's playing against, like, in theory, relatively seasoned players. Diego's relatively seasoned. Vitasia is one of the guys in Spain who is very strong in that area, and he's running what many might consider a very good list. So, you know, Meta John showing how it works. He runs up against another steer player running a different style of list. I know he made a comment about Mance being a bit of a pain in the ass to deal with, but again, it's still a win. And then he plays a Pedrogo list. So yeah, like, individual performance. It is good that Mikhail's doing well, obviously. It's proving that he is a very good player, of course, which is, I don't think anyone really doubts that, to be honest. And Lockerbie says it's quite sad. I don't think it is Lockerbie. I actually don't think it is. I think really good players, and I do mean this, like, really good players, you should kind of expect them to be able to pick up a list and use it. If the list is good, they should be able to pick up a list and just use it. Because, like, really good players know how the list that they've fought against functions, because in order to beat a list, you have to understand how it works. So a lot of thinking about a list when you come up with a counter is about thinking about what your opponent is doing and wants to do. So you spend a lot of the best way I was countering go back season ago. The best way I thought about countering Night's Watch wasn't thinking about what I do. It was thinking about, right, what does the Night's Watch player want to do? And do I have the tool sets to counter that thing? And the answer was yes. I can introduce all these tools to counter that particular thing that they want to do. And I understand how the Night's Watch list works. I understand what it's going to do. I understand what the plays are going to make. And it's actually what it sounds really bizarre. It's your off-meta, kind of brand lists from factions that you don't often play against, where you're like, oh, right, I have not come with a solution to this list, or haven't thought about the list I'm playing into. I don't know what they want to achieve. And because I don't know what they want to achieve, I'm at a bit of a disadvantage going into the game. Again, something I'm going to talk about in a minute. But that's where you can do quick analysis, right? You can do quick analysis of what they might want to achieve, and do something with it. So yeah, I don't think it is sad, Lockerbie. I think it's a good thing. It is a good thing that the best player, as rated on stats in the world, can pick up a good list and go and win an event with it. That's kind of the point. If he didn't win the event, it would mean the list is not good, or Mikhail's not as good as we think he is, right? That's kind of the point. But the reason it's important is that this is the first time Mikhail's basically ever done this for a big event like this. So yeah, obviously congratulations to Mikhail first and foremost. But I actually think it's really important. It's important for these things to happen. It doesn't have to be regularly, but it's important that good players run good lists at points. I've always said that. You want the best players in the world running the best lists in some events, not every event. If he'd rocked up and won with neutrals, it would have been amazing, well done. But also if you're winning with neutrals, you are just far better than everyone else there at the event, most likely. And that's fine, but that's more of an indictment of the people you're playing against, most likely, than that player themselves. Not always the case, but most likely. So yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's an important thing, and it can be a good thing. And we know we're in a meta here, like we've discussed, where the game is actually fairly balanced. So this list, although it is the power list, or one of the power lists, it's not egregiously powerful. It is not the kind of list you put on the board and automatically win with. Those lists don't really exist in this patch, not in the same way anyway. So yeah, obviously congratulations, and I will get Mikhail on to talk about not just this, but other things as well in the future. I've been meaning to get him on. Alas, it's been a busy day. Yeah, if you're winning with neutrals, you must be playing $1 million. Yeah, just go play $1 million poker because you must be a god gamer. Yeah, most likely. Again, most likely doesn't actually mean that that's true, but most likely means you're true. It's true, most likely. So, obviously, congratulations there to Mikhail. And that was the reason I brought that was Madrid. It was the Madrid GT, 28-player event. It was probably the largest event was run over the weekend. We also had though this 18-player event, which was, I believe, a tournament in Germany. Yeah, which was nice to see a German community, and it's a German community that is not very well known. There are very few players on this list here who you would see online, and certainly very few players on here that you would kind of recognize. And that's really good. It's really good that we've got a kind of area, another kind of thing running here, another tournament scene, and an 18-player event is a good event size. So I'm really happy that one went ahead, which is why I wanted to talk about it briefly today. Let's go back over to here. The House of Orcs 8, of course, which was, again, Jasper proving that he really is just absolutely smashing out there. And we did have, I'm going to try and find it, but I have all the information of it anyway, so I'll bring this all up. We actually had an event in, here we go, no, not this one. This one. An event in Poland. Hey, Poland! The reason this one is really big is it's a 32-player event that crept in under the radar. And not only just a 32-player event, but you'll notice there's a bit of a mix of players. So this is a German event, a Polish event. So it happened in Poland, but you also had attendances from German and I, for the life of me, don't know which this flag is. Uganda. There you go, Uganda flag. I can cheat. And a bit of Russian as well. 32-player event in the end, and that's really good. Like, it's really, really good to see another Polish event get good numbers. There are some players on here that you kind of like recognize or see as well. We've got things like, I'm trying to see who's on the list. Grisholk's on there. He's a name I've mentioned a fair few times. See him fairly amount. Call Me Sophie, who's the guy who sent me information. Zoisa, Zoisha, I think is pronounced, but part of the Bolter guys. Kosa 22, 2220. Another running Greyjoys. Both these guys running Greyjoys. Brilliant. Yeah. Couple of players that we recognise there, but a load of the Katowice and Team Bolter guys, as well as some of the German, and they're from Tabletop Session, who are a group, which is Marcel's group, isn't it? Tabletop Session. I'm trying to think where they're based. They ran some events last year, which is why, or last year, but the year before, which is why I recognise them. It's not egregiously powerful because the only list that has COTS is COTS. The only list that is egregiously powerful has COTS. COTS OP. Mikhail, I would never play COTS. I would feel dirty. I saw someone lose COTS to 2 attacks the other day. Like, not even like big attacks as well, like just 2 like 6 dice on 3s or 6 dice on 4 attacks. I think it was. It's quite funny. Well, I say funny. It wasn't funny. It was disastrous for the Baratheon player. All right. So, yes, there we go. A little bit of an insight for you. This was won by a Baratheon player with Eldon Estamont. And ran Stannis, Eldon, Stannis. Right, so 6 rounds and he ran Stannis in 5 of them. Rightful Heir. Let's see what the Rightful Heir list looks like. So the Eldon list, mixing it up with Parman, Crane, Highgarden, Pikeman, double champs, Elena and Courtney. Yep. Stannis list. Okay, so he's gone for the solo. He's gone for Mel and Crescent, which is big. He's gone for the Lightbringers, no Davos. Champs, Glory Seeker, Dragonstone Noble, Queensmen, Rightful Heir. Yeah, again, these are kind of list archetypes we're seeing kind of crop up a lot. The Elden list there, kind of like pushing in the Highgarden Pikeman, not something you normally see in the Elden lists. And also putting in Palm and Crane with the Rally Cry. Interesting. I don't know how effective that was, of course. I wasn't there. But I mean, the winner of the event ran 10. He ran 10-5 against an opposing Elden player. So take that with what you will. That's interesting. Did he? He lost 1 game. That's actually super interesting. He lost the last game, but still won the event because they played enough rounds to get through the players. That's why playing extra rounds is worth it. Did he? Oh no. Yeah, he won on tiebreakers, and the other guys. Did anyone else lose their last game? No. Yeah. Oh, and Marcin. He got a draw. He wasn't up there. He would have been low on tiebreakers anyway. Rip. But there you go. It's that event there, 32-player event that ran that day as well. I did have one more that I was going to go through with you today. And this one's it's got a special place in my heart, really. It's not because it was a big event or anything like that, but I've got some awesome pictures to show from this one as well. And this is because it was the guys from Australia. So we'd said that the Australian team and the Australian guys had been quite quiet. The Aussies ran an event this weekend on Stats as well, and it was Dark Angels group. I think it's Dark. I always forget their nicknames now, but Scott's group from Dark Angel, I believe it was, with his kind of community down in the lovely Australian areas. So the reason I wanted to bring it up was won by a start player, with 9 TPs, 12, 71 UDs, and 12 secondaries, and he won on UDs with the second place player playing Targaryen. So there you go. How awesome is that? So yeah, brilliant. So I really hope that Sydney group is doing well. And I did say I had some pictures for you. So let's whip these pictures up. Pachow. 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 Here we go. So here we can see the absolutely wonderful group of players playing some lovely games. Lots of lovely swag, including what looks like to be awesome movement trays as well. And you can see down here a picture of a Night's Watch army. This Night's Watch army isn't just a random Night's Watch army. It was actually painted for the event, right? The Night's Watch army was painted for the event to give away, basically, which is amazing, right? And it was professionally painted. It was professionally painted up for the event. So I'll find out if I can find the place for it. I've got some much nicer images of the Night's Watch army that were fully painted. It was all shared on the Australia group, I think, on Facebook. Australia, New Zealand. There we go. And here we go. So load this up, and I'll throw this in here. Pachow. So there you go. Here's the Night's Watch list. I'll come back to this in a second. I'll come back to that. But love it. Love the basing. Tactical Rock, though. Carlo disapproves. Trackers. Vets. Double Swarm Bros. There you go. So this was all actually done in partnership with Beyond the Blue, right? Or Beyond Blue, which is a charity, which is why they were kind of giving it away. Now, for those of you who don't know, Beyond Blue is a charity to do with, I believe, mental health. I'll have to double check. Again, let's get open their webpage. You can never harm. Yeah, so it's anxiety, depression, mental health in Australia. So they've done. They got some proceeds to go towards Beyond Blue, to really help mental health, which I'm a big fan of. Big fan of helping mental health charities. So yeah, fantastic to see the community down there supporting that. And I believe the event, or the winner, was Hayden as well from the event, who won it. So well done, Hayden, for winning the raffle. But yeah, also fantastic to see money getting raised for the event, and quite a bit was raised, I think, which was nice to see. Right, anyway, I'll go back to showing you the other cool images from this event. So you can see, look, this is why everybody's got these goddamn spearwives, right? Yeah, this is why everyone has them. Generic, random, cool stuff being given away. Pictures of some games. Oh, I can't click on a button. There we go. There we go. Mother of Dragons. Mother of Dragons reprint. Lysine Sellswords. Let's get me some of those. Okay, I love this. I love it. Two completely unpainted armies, which is brilliant because I think they were playing. Like the event was designed for like newer players and stuff, and then someone's put 2 stone throwers on the table. Yes. 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 Double stone thrower. Let's go. How good is it? Probably terrible. How fun is it? Probably terrible for one player. Absolutely love it though. Absolutely love it. So, great event to see being run. And I love the pictures. I love sharing the pictures with you guys as well. So thanks for that update. It's good to hear from the Australian community, a community that was otherwise quite quiet for a while, in that we hadn't heard much coming out of them. So yeah, well done, Scott, and the others for running the event, of course. All right then. So what else was I going to run through? That's everything there. Talking about events wise. Yeah, another thing randomly. This has got nothing to do with anything, and no one will care. So this is why I'm telling you. I have a box of Hedge Knights now. After I found out that a store near me, which I used to work near, which is a card store, randomly sells some Fire miniatures, which I had no idea about. Like literally no idea about. And they have stuff in stock that was, I thought, like really rare. So like I haven't found a box of Hedge Knights in the UK for a while that's been like a reasonable price. And these weren't cheap, but they weren't like really expensive. They were like standard box prices. And I was like, fair enough. Who'd have known? Literally random store, which is good in some ways. Anyway, there we go. Can you tell I've gone mad with just like random thinking and random? They probably didn't even know either. Yeah, they probably didn't even know either. That is probably true. All right. Okay. So that's where I'm at with the thing. Basically, I want to show you an image next of all. Now, this image is actually in German, and I commented on it earlier. But I actually want to show you this because I actually think that this kind of proves or allows a very good discussion that I think a lot of people here might benefit from, and the idea of teaching the game, right? And it's this here. This is what was posted. This was a Martell list, and you'll notice it's got Oberyn Commander in Dervishes. We've got the Königlich Guard von Sonnenspeer, so that's Sonnenspeer Royal Guard, Ritter von Stenfall, which will be Starfall Knights, and Dunenviprin, which will be Dune Vipers. And then, strangely enough, Tyene Sand, Walder Frey, and Ilaria Sand. So let's flesh this list out. Well, I got Unit Bolt and Flayed Men about 6 months ago when they were out of stock for just $25 from a local store because they've been sitting on their shelf for 4 years. So it was discounted. Amazing. Right. This is Oberyn Martell in June. Sunspear Dervishes. We've got a unit of the Royal Guard, a unit of Starfall Knights, and a unit of Dune Vipers. And then we have Ilaria, Tyene, and Walder. Okay, cool. So, you're probably thinking, why on earth is this list something I want to discuss? This list is something I want to discuss because I think there's a lot that could be learned from this list. And this is actually kind of the discussions that I hope to promote on a lot of the Discords now. I wanted to have discussions around how do we make bad things work, right? Because we shouldn't try and make bad things work. That's not really the point. But it's the discussion of why, for me, the deeper discussion of why something is bad is going to much better tell people why something is good. Now, yes, the obvious thing is, and Carlo's response to sometimes is fairly straight on, which is it's just bad. It just is bad. But I think a lot of people would like that to be explained in a little bit more detail. So, this list is bad, right? This is a bad list. First of all, we could argue we're not running Harman Allah, we're running Oberyn. Oberyn isn't as good as other things, right? Sunspear Dervishes with Oberyn doesn't have a huge amount of synergy. There is some synergy. Yeah, there is some synergy. There's not a lot of synergy. So, yeah, okay, cool, fine. Not going to complain, fine. Sunspear Royal Guard, fine choice, no problems there. It's a good 7-point unit. Starfall Knights, fine here, fine 8-point unit. Dune Vipers, personally, I don't think they're a very good 6-point unit. This gang up keyword really just does not get used as often as I think it needs. And at that point, you're just a 4+, 6+, this is Halberdiers without set for charge. that give out weakened tokens on attacks. The real plus of the Doom Viper is that 6 move. And that 6 move is actually pretty good if you can use it. So when you're using Doom Vipers, you have to be really thinking about using them proactively as a defensive unit rather than kind of like defensively. I think a lot of people get lured into using them quite defensively. Use the movement. Use that movement stat. Right. So, and this is the discussion. Like, so data says Walder is terrible and Tyene is bad, but not terrible. So she's not great. Right. We could break it down and say why Walder is not good or bad, and why Tyene is not good or bad. But I actually want to think about what the list is trying to afford. And the way I, in short, described it was that Walder's not a great piece. Like, Walder does introduce weaknesses to the list that we know and have discussed previously. The idea of not being able to pass effectively early on, giving away zones to your opponent. But this is where you have Tyene Sand. Tyene Sand allows you to poison that 3rd zone. And he even mentions in his thing, poisoning the crowns. So what does this mean for my opponent? Well, my opponent is probably just going to pass with their 3rd NCU unless they're happy to take the poison. They're going to be happy to take the poison on round 3 because using an NCU at the end of round 4 for rounds 5 and 6 probably isn't a big deal unless they're already losing the game. So, yeah, on round 5 and 6, it's probably not a big issue. So it's the early game. It's the early game kind of synergies and conundrums, and what this means. Like, it means I'm more likely to want to allow Martells to have first player on round 3, because then they can't swap round 2 with grounds with Walder and take the grounds, swap to first player, and that's fine. And it's a 7 activation list, which means you're going to be doing that as your 7th activation, not your 8th. Which means that my 8th activation, which is what I'm assuming I'm playing an 8 activation list into this, that my 8th activation can't be answered anyway, and you're still only just going first. So you're not kind of like forced into the situation where Walder is the last thing activating. And if Walder is the last thing activating, there's a good chance something will be engaged, so you get some good value out of an attack, or some really good value out of a heal, or this kind of trading thing. So I thought about it, and I thought, right, let's go from the basis that my opponent or the player in question wants to have this NCU set up. How are you going to get it most out of it? And this was kind of like really good example of list building, right? List building objectives and list building theory where this particular individual has stumbled, right? And they've stumbled really big, which is they've thought, I'm going to get 2 attacks. And I just simply say, well, you're not. Because you've got 4 combat units, all of which are melee based. So for you to get attacks, it requires you to have be engaged when Walder can activate, and for me to allow you to attack me. Generally speaking, you're not going to be doing that with a full health unit unless I'm kind of like basically said, yeah, that's fine, in a 7 versus 8 matchup. So that isn't really happening. And I explain a potential play where you can use some cunning ploy and then activate charge, and maybe that charge unit has already activated and potentially hasn't moved, or can't move. So yeah, you might get the Walder play, but like I can still react to all of these things going on. So, and it's 2 or 3 turns to set up the whole play. Like, it's kind of obvious it's coming, especially when I've still got a lot of activations left to go. But it's a very good example, as I say, very good example of that kind of like missed opportunity, because the outlet for Walder's simply not there if you're not engaged, which means the NCU does a lot less. Whereas if this was something like Sand Skirmishers instead of the Sunsteel Royal Guard, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, so I actually do have to be careful, because yeah, they're basically only running a 6 activation list. But at that 7th activation, he could just Walder onto any open zone, probably the poisoned one, and use a maneuver. And that maneuver can be a shot from the skirms, which means that actually, like, there's there's quite a long range threat on that, and that can come in at the 7th activation of the round after a march. So it's like, hang on, that's like a 12-inch march followed by a 6-inch move and a 2-inch shift, and this is Night's Watch engagement ranges right now. We're talking potentially 18, 20, 26, 26-inch engagement range from one unit. On turns, or your opponent on the Martel players turn 6 and 7. That's not something to shake a stick at, right? That is something that you might need to think about. That has a little bit more counterplay. That has more threat. Yeah. So, Fickle Dice says cost-benefit ratio is off. If the combat takes too many moving parts, you're giving your opponent a wrench to throw in. Yes, it's specifically time. Time is the moving parts in this game. Sometimes it's resource, like if it costs a card and this and this and this. But like, that actually isn't so bad if the resources line up and always work. It's things that can disrupt that combo, especially if it's time. And time-based combos are very difficult to pull off in this game. Because one player, and this is really important, one player in a you-go-I-go system always has control of time. So time-based combos don't work. You're looking for things that aren't time-based to try and pull a win. And I think that's what a lot of people don't think about. So when you're running a lower activation list, you need to be taking stuff that's not time-dependent. Take stuff that isn't dependent on certain activation orders happening. Now, there's sometimes you can't do that, like objectives. Objective control is like an order of operations thing. You can't control that, so don't try to. Like, there isn't much you could do if you're out-activated and your opponent charges you and removes a rank on the final round of the final turn of the round. You can't really do that much about that. But maybe this is where we have to talk about the introduction of stuff that is going to potentially remove a rank as you come in. So it's like, defensive pieces, right? And it's really weird. Me talk about defensive pieces. Never thought you'd probably hear me talk about this before, right? So there's just like something to think about. Which leads us back into the conversations we had yesterday, or let's say yesterday, last week, around terrain. Being able to force a defensive piece to the middle of the board is actually really important. And you should invest resources on round 1 doing so. Like, don't take letters on round 1, take horse. Take horse and get the defensive piece in the middle of the board. Because if you don't do that, you're going to struggle. So that's just something to be thinking of. And I think this list really does encapsulate that problem, because it works around this kind of like theory of we are just going to walk at each other, and that just doesn't happen. And this is where I think the difference between good players and general players really kind of stems, in that a good player won't do something unless they have to do something. Now, sometimes they have to do something but don't recognize they have to do something. And that is, again, a player skill kind of thing where they're playing too standoffish. They don't realize they have to make a play. And then they leave it too late. The play doesn't work, or they get lucky and the play works, but actually it was really late in the game. I like to think the difference between, good players of this game and the likes of Mikhail are at the top end, the real top end, the top of the top. We take risks, and we take risks actually sometimes quite early into a game, because we know that the risk is worth taking at certain times early in the game, because it's better to take the risk when we have more time to deal with the potential negatives of it, rather than taking a risk very late in the game, where if it doesn't work for us, like, we don't have a way back in. And you'll see that a lot. Myself, Carlo, Mikhail. Carlo's a very safe player, like very safe, but he will still take risks quite early on. So yeah, something that I would say is kind of the difference, or one key thing about players at that level. I don't know though. So yeah, this list for me was a really good opportunity to really discuss that. And then it kind of led me into kind of like a into a bit of a rabbit hole thinking. And I only noticed this today, and I was like, oh, think about this and think about that. List building. Think about these components. Think about the role it's supposed to play. And then this is one of the things that I think I'm actually... Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Data. Exactly. You just don't need to charge. I spent yesterday. It's a really good example. I played a game yesterday. Now, I won't go into the full complexities of that particular game in terms of what exactly happened. But basically, I just decided this side of the board is not something I want to have to deal with. And because my opponent made some kind of misdeployment, potentially, or misplayed around the terrain maybe a little bit, I didn't have to deal with it. I had fully pillaged up Balon Reavers looking at the flank of a unit of skirmishers, which admittedly would have opened my flank up to Royal Guard, but like I was literally looking at the flank of a unit that I could have even had double tokens on, and I was like, I'm not going to charge it. I have no need to charge that enemy unit because it enables loads of card play. It maybe enables a set for charge, other things going on. Like, I don't need to do any of that. I am just going to stand here. I will wait till my opponent forces me to do something. I'm winning elsewhere on the board. This being a standstill is fine. And that was a really good example of like, just don't do anything. If you don't have to do anything and you are winning and you're not losing the position in some other way, then don't do it. Just don't do something. Just exist. Do the thing you're supposed to do. So yeah, that's a very important lesson to learn, Data. But I agree. Yeah, if your wife's learning that, that's an important one. So anyway, list building. I've said it before, but one of the strengths personally, and now this is me just self-analyzing, one of my personal strengths is I think I'm very good at planning how a list is supposed to function. I know what I want to do round 1. I kind of know what I want to do round 2. I almost know what I want to do round 3. To the point of, like, obviously this all obviously changes as soon as you see your opponent's lists, this, that, and the other. But like, depending on my list, I can probably tell you what the board state looks like at the end of round 1. I can almost certainly tell you what it looks like at the end of round 1, or at least how I think it should look like. I can also probably tell you what it looks like at the end of round 2. And I can do that from before deployment. Like, this is probably just, you give me the terrain on the board, right, what are you going to do? What should your opponent do? Right? And winning the game in those early rounds, because I'm looking at it thinking, right, this is what my opponent should do to counter my strategy. Did they do it? Answer, no. Okay, so where's my advantage? Not like, how do I win, or these kind of things, but like, there is an advantage here. Where is it? I have to find it, and then I utilize that advantage to win the game. That is a skill set, and I do think, without trying to blow my own shot, I think that is my own skill set, and where I excel the most at is those kind of like initial planning and early turns and early terrain, that side of the game. I think other people, and I fully bow down to the likes of Carlo, even like Keijo, I've even said it to him. What they excel at is, I think that they excel at making gameplay decisions. Carlo especially. Carlo will, generally speaking, work out what the best play is to make at any given moment and make it, which is why Carlo is very good at this game. He picks the right thing to do at the right time. And that is a very important skill as well. And that's where kind of the differences are, right? In that he doesn't necessarily have a plan, he doesn't necessarily have all these kinds of things mapped out, but he will make the right decision at that time. And that's, again, my weakness. I don't make those right decisions at those right times, and that causes me to lose games where I was actually potentially in an advantageous position, potentially. So this is what we have to contend with. How can we get good at the planning side? Well, the decision making side, I'm not actually the best really to teach people how to make better. Carlo really makes you think twice to make a play. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Carlo introduces constant wedges to your own plays constantly, which is why he's an absolute nightmare to play against all the time. Now we don't play nearly as much as we used to. But yeah. So, I guess what does it mean to have these kind of interesting plays or interesting discussions or kind of like planning? I really want people to go away, hopefully from today, and go onto Discord or go into your other communities, and when you start talking about the game, so have a think about what is it that your list actually wants to achieve. How does it achieve its win condition? How does it make a play without using time? So if you're facing up from a 7 to an 8, how do you make a play without utilizing time? Because you don't have time on your side. It's not in your control, right? How do you make a play using time without using time? Sorry. And how can you force your list to work with terrain deployment, as we covered last week, and your initial deployments and movements that you're making in the game? How can you make your list function? What is it that you're doing in those early rounds explicitly? And people say, oh, I'm going to, I'll probably do this here and I'll do this here. No. Chess. You have an opening. What is your opening, right? And I know people say, oh, but it's not chess. It kind of is chess. Round 1 is kind of chess. Like, you don't know what your opponent has every game. You don't know what the terrain is every game. But round 1 is chess. You help lay out the terrain. You know your list and you know your opponent's list, and that will inform you of their opening. That's no different to playing a King's Indian versus, a Sicilian, right? They're both chess openings. Do I look like a guy who has a plan? This is true. Carlo doesn't have plans. His plan is mostly just to make it through every day, and also to make a lot of money. That's his other plan, and never work a hard day in his life, which I believe is what he's failing at the moment. He's actually working quite hard at the moment. But that was his other plan. I remember that plan. That plan's a very old plan. He legitimately told me one day, I plan to never really work hard. It's one of the first things I think he ever said to me when I met him. But yeah, no, the guy's working really hard at the moment, and clearly not to plan. So coming up with this plan, right? How does this list work? So this list, as we've discussed, it wants to run terrain. We're not trying to change the list completely, because we could sit here and say, I'll just run a better list. Of course we could. But it's like making an amendment to a list to make it work better, just based on people's own theory with how the list should work. So I think something like the Sand Skirmishers here are a perfect example of being able to say this list is now slightly better, right? Carl and I have the exact same approach. Plans are for suckers. It's true, Craig. It's absolutely true. Plans are for suckers. Plans are for losers, mate. That's what plans are for. No, I actually genuinely think that if you can make the best decisions but have a plan, which, and plans come from playing a list a lot. You understand how the list works and you generate a plan from that, admittedly. If you generate a plan from a list that you played a lot, then That's why you get very good with a list, because you understand how the list functions and you have a plan that works, but you're also able to make those good decisions. So yeah, it used to be true 1.6. You know, you could kind of map it out way more, but I do think Harvey Dent looks like a guy with a plan. Rip. I do think there's a lot to be said of having a plan and what that would look like, and more importantly, how you can make that work. So how can you make it work? Well, I already said to you multiple times, take the horses round one. Horse is good. Horse is good thing, because movement good and movement important, and claiming space is important and good. What else? Take things that make sense for your list. Like, take things in your list that fit the plan. Don't take things in your list that don't fit the plan and have a role within the plan. Because if they don't have a role within the plan, what is the point? The best example I have is like the Elden lists, right? The Elden list, part of the plan, and it sounds really kind of like throw it away, kind of garbage when I say it. But the Elden list kind of is just run it down mid. Like, put your list in a position where it's hard to deal with and run it down, right? If you run it down mid, there's a good chance that you'll be fine. You know, you'll be fine, because that's what the Elden list does. You rely on the stats and you run it down mid. And people are very good at running it down mid. Like, you know, it's a very easy thing to do. Like, YOLO, right? That move in a that way's direction at maximum pace. Most people can do that with an army list. No, not everyone can run at maximum pace. It's quite hard, but you know, a that way direction in maximum pace, yeah, pretty easy. I think that's why Elden wins a lot, because it just goes, there you go. People don't have a real plan with it, but ironically, the plan that works with that list is the plan that people do when they get good with that list, or if they're playing the list fresh. And a lot of people can't deal with that wall of metal running at you. That also hits a little bit like a truck when it gets those battle endurances out. So, why do I mention all this? Why do I think all this comes about? Well, I think this is what I want people to start thinking about, and before people start to really get bogged down in the particulars of a plan. A lot of plan is sequencing. You know, I am going to probably do this round 1 and do this on round 2. Or I'm probably going to activate this unit on turn 1. I'm probably going to activate this NCU first, this NCU second, this NCU first. And those plans can change. The particulars can change. But I think a lot of people go, well, I'm going to get engaged with this unit, and then I'm going to do this. And it's like, right, but like, how did you make that unit engaged? How did you make any of these things happen? Because unless you're forcing these things to happen, which is probably abusable, then they aren't going to happen unless you set them up in the early stages. So it all comes down to those round 1 and 2 planning moments. You know, I'm going to be engaged, I'm going to do this. Okay, how are you going to be engaged? Well, I'm going to charge whatever's in front of me. Okay, but like, it's like a 5-up charge on round 2. Do you really want to do that? Oh, not really. Then how are you going to make it engaged? Well, I'll be engaged round 3. Yeah, sure, but like, don't care by round 3. I'm in a position now to maximize that charge because you've waited until turn 3 to do it. Oh, right, okay. Yeah, you know, I've lost a load of wounds. You've lost a load of wounds because I've just shot you. Get your units in the game early, get them doing something early. And sometimes, and this is where the irony really starts to set in, sometimes not doing anything is just as strong as doing something. Because a unit that is just sat there, you can't charge, you can't even shoot, you're too far away from it to activate and do anything with it. But also, you really don't want to move up closer to it, because if you move any closer to it, you enable charges and other things like that, and then it just comes in and starts smacking you apart. Don't do that either, right? And this is where, you know, we talk about risky players. I've played a couple of games recently where I'm like, yeah, I'll take a 2-up charge. I'll take a 3-up charge. Because I'm playing garbage, right? I'm playing neutrals in some of these games to try and level out the differences. And the truth of the matter is that I'm going to take that because if I don't take it, there's a chance I'll just lose because neutrals really are bad. So yeah, take the opportunity, go for it, push it. Don't be afraid. Have a plan. The plan doesn't need the minutia. It does sometimes if you're trying to work out like exact positioning for certain things. But really what I want you to see is have a plan for a list and build the list around the plan, right? How do you run support pieces to make the plan more reliable or work more often? What allows the plan to take shape in the list? Is it because it's a high activation list? Therefore, you're going to allow this, 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 and this to happen because you're now a combo list effectively playing with time. The time is the combo. Are you not playing a time list because you haven't got activations? Are you playing a list that requires lots of setup and combos in a 7 activation list? Well, it's not going to happen. Don't do that. Don't run combos like that. Run combos that allow you to do things that are going to gain you an advantage in some way. You know, I set my wife off with Elden because it's super easy to run. Only 2 units, 2 Wardens, and 2 Cutthroats. And the game plan is Champions of Stag. 2 Cutthroats would be a terrible list. 2 Wardens, 2 Cutthroats, 3 NCUs. Let's go. 32 points. And the game plan is simple. Alright, could be more, I guess. It's a good learning list. Once you get better, she moves to Stannis. Fair enough. Craig says the real plan is to plan the counter to your opponent's plan. Yeah, that too. Neutrals are a faction. Yeah. The plan is stones. Rock is the best. Nothing beats rock. Where is paper? Paper armor. Paper defense saves. You don't need them rocks if the paper defense saves come out. So, yeah, that's what I want people to think about. And that's kind of what I want people to discuss now when talk about lists. Have some non-negotiables. Like, don't be afraid. And this goes out to all players watching this. It doesn't matter how good or bad you are. I want people to start introducing non-negotiables. Like, I approached this list basically with the mindset of saying he wants his NCU setup to be the same. He wants his NCU setup to be the same, and I'm not going to change commander unless I really think that like this commander is better for what you want to achieve. Like Oberyn, for me in this scenario, is fine, especially when you consider that Oberyn has intercept orders, right? Intercept orders, you're playing a tactics board control style list. So I think intercept orders is fine. I'm not going to recommend other NCU changes because I think that's what he wants. The only one that I really consider here was like Baelish in over Ilaria, but Ilaria is really good. I don't know if Baelish is better than Ilaria. I think Ilaria is fine. Keeps him running more Martell stuff. Fine, right? So I'm coming at it from the basis I'm not changing the core of what the list is designing to do, but I'm introducing a maybe improvement as to how the list can make it work better. And that's kind of what I want you to think about because it's too easy. You know, is this list any good? No. Okay, what's a good list? Just use this better thing. This is a better list in every way. Oh, but that's got none of the things in it that I wanted. Exactly. Like, paper doesn't beat rock. That's an urban legend. Paper does beat rock. As I sign away your life. But no, so the good example is the stone throwers, right? And this is actually what's really interesting, what Evan says, and he's not wrong in that, stones, the plan is stones. But actually, like, yes, exactly. You've gone into a game and you're basically saying, I am going to, and I'm investing a lot of my list into throwing lots of rocks at people. Lots of stones are going to come down on my enemy. And my enemy has to have a problem solving head to resolve that issue. I am going to run this unit doing this thing in the list. This is why it is here. It is not there to do damage. It's not there to do this thing. It's there to run as like a deterrent for this. I'm running this in the list to do this. Like everything in that stone thrower list, when you talk about it, Evan, is there for a reason. Does that mean the list is amazing? No. Does that mean the list works though? Because you run it to the plan, and when the plan works, the list works. It's not about the list working, it's about the plan working. So, execution of plan, very important. Day to talk about his wife. She actually found me, but while her main hobbies are weaving and sewing, those are very interesting hobbies. She'll try anything. She'll try an old school Hex Encounter war game. Oh wow! And she's enjoyed it on Ice and Fire. Good on you, smiley face. My wife plays some of us occasionally and is coming to Nats to check out the games. Awesome, Crones. Awesome. That'd be good stuff. Does that mean the list is amazing? Yes. No, this is not OP. This is not too good. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to give you today. It's just some rambling from me at you guys who might want to listen to my rambling for it. I do have maybe. Let's have a little look. I was going to kind of wrap up there really because I don't have a huge amount more I want to talk about today, but I am going to look about build around units. Oh god, there's some real trash in here. We did the Mormont Bruisers. Golden Company War Elephants is on the list. Oh man. A build around list for Golden Company War Elephants. From what faction though? There's a question. What faction would I even do that with? I'll have to think about that one a lot more. Build the Scorpions. That's an easy one to do. And Sentinels. Actually, I saw someone playing an interesting Scorpion list. Which I'll kind of rebuild for you just quickly. And I liked it because it wasn't like the heavy in that we often see in Scorpion. It was a John list. And it ran, all of the things that we know and love. Let's just stick them all in, right? But it ran quite an interesting like swap around at the end. Yeah, short is a relative term, Mikhail. Yeah, and yeah, to keep it short, 1.5 hours. So this is like the standard kind of John list that you've all seen, yeah? Except it didn't run the trackers and the vanguards. It ventured out and it ran a Scorpion. It then teamed the Scorpion up and he went veterans. I don't know if veterans are the better play, but he went with veterans with Awful Yarwick Spotter. Right? Gets the improved defenses. And so he can be running around on 3s potentially. And he has the Awful Yarwick and he has the Corrin buff there. So this particular individual went for this build. It's a bit different. It's a bit different from the classic John list. Yes, it's using all the components that we know that makes John strong, right? But when people talk about like a build around, like build a Scorpion list, or it's a bad unit, why would you take it? And I thought this was interesting. Might I run Sworn Brothers instead of the veterans? Maybe. I'm also kind of doubling down on the veteran Cold Hands play though. That's kind of interesting. You kind of want to remove Othel, because if you don't remove Othel, that Scorpion's now got rerolls against your cavalry because I've moved you out. I can propel myself into combat because, I think Crohn's. It might have been you were playing against. I think you might have been playing against it, which I saw it. But Corrin influencing the veterans puts them at move 6. Watcher move 7. Move 7 infantry that could potentially charge off the horses. Like this is being a bit aggro now. It uses that Scorpion just passively. Othel's getting close. Get my rerolls with my Scorpion into that enemy. Like, it can use the Scorpion more aggressively as well. It is a John list. Interesting, right? Interesting. Is this list amazing? Don't know. Probably not. Probably not amazing. Is it look like it could be fun to play? Yeah, I'd say it looks like it could be fun to play. Give it a try. Or lists like it. As you build a Scorpion crew type list build. You could really go ham and, of course, dump all of this relative garbage. we actually need, let's say that relative piece of garbage needs to come back, and you run something real stupid. Where are we? Offal's back again. Senior Builder, some more Scorps, double Scorp, Senior Builder, and then you can run Offal with something like Shadow Tower Spearman if you really want to. Yeah, Bladey ran this list. Yeah, it was. That's the game I saw it. Build a Scorpion if you want to go that particular route, or you can go like one of these if you really want to. I'm keeping the same NCU layout. You may change the NCU layout. I've just realised as well that's meant to be Donald, of course, because Donald is the beast. Something like this anyway. I'm just going to put Hunters in, but like ultimately there could be any 7-point unit. I would have to think about a little bit more of how I would want to run it. You could also drop the conscripts here into Stormcrow Mercs. Risky, always risky, allowing you one of the things here, so you could go for the Overwatch if you really wanted to on one of your units. That does introduce neutrals, which I think is risky, but yeah, use this outlay. This could also be reduced to a 6-point unit, which again I have seen someone do that. They could have more. That's the stakes. I want more Overwatch. This list is a meme. Use it. Yeah, this list is a meme. Use it. So yeah, this one's a bit more of a meme. I wouldn't recommend this one. I don't think this is... Personally, I don't particularly like this list. I know that Marky was running... Marky Mark was running something similar to this. I don't like it myself. That doesn't mean it's terrible. It's just not... I just don't like it. You probably drop Corrin here and maybe run something else as well. Maybe run a Tycho, potentially. Or maybe just run a 4-pointer. So you drop Donald, take Bowen, and that allows you to have the conscripts over the Stormcrow Mercs. But then you're still stuck with this, which is sadness. Not having a 6-point infantry unit is real killing for Night's Watch at the moment. Okay. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you today. Just as a short episode, as I said. There is some, hopefully, things getting sorted out this week in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully there'll be some more news to share with that. Things like the community FAQ, which took a bit of a stall because there's a particularly difficult kind of thing we're trying to resolve. And once I'm happy with that, and once I've kind of like people are happy with that, I think it will go in, and then that will go for general release. And maybe may or may not be used. You know, people might decide not to use it. That's absolutely fine. Of course, it is. It's a community FAQ for a reason. But hopefully, the reason I'm now in conversation with Adam, and hopefully that will go to Adam and to the organised play team to help not resolve rules questions, but it will go some way into helping the designers, developers, or the rules people for things like US Nationals, among other things, to get a hold of how people are playing it in the community and how people think it should be played. And if they know if they think they know how it should be played, then they can amend it, hopefully. Now, yes, is this all forlorn? Am I talking about pipe dreams? Of course I am. But we've got to start somewhere, haven't we? So, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate your time today. As always, I will see you all probably next week. Let's run through some tournaments that are coming up, though. We have got Rampage North of the Wall in Karlstad, Sweden. Nice. Come up this Saturday. It's July this Saturday. Wow. We're actually officially venturing into Q3 as of the end of this week. We've got Hear Me Roar in the summer edition of Hear Me Roar in Braunschweig, Germany. We've got the South of Throne in Caen, France. We've got the Game of Thrones Battlefield Berlin in Berlin, Germany. Good to see that small one there. We've got the Welsh GT this weekend. Let's see how it goes. I believe it's sold out. They're waiting for everyone to get themselves sorted, but it has sold out, I believe. Carlo's going down along with Carlo bought his ticket today. Wow, along with Phil and Amy from our club, and a load of the Dead Meta guys. Wow, yeah, there's a big group of Dead Meta going down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 people from Dead Meta going down. I can't make it, unfortunately. I thought I was potentially going to be able to make it a couple months back, so I kind of was looking to get a ticket, but alas, not something I can attend. Which is a bit of a shame. So yeah, I really hope the Welsh GT goes really well. Really hyped for the Welsh GT actually in terms of seeing how it all plans out. And the Welsh guys are lovely. Scabman and of course Luke, who we've had here on the channel. Probably get them along next week if they're available to come on and chat about how things went. The Battle in Chattanooga Valley, so another event happening in Chattanooga. So I'm just count them as we go to this week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is number 6. So it's another potential 32-player event in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Not a huge amount of people currently signed up, but hopefully that one goes really well. House of the Badger in West Sacramento, California. Love to see it. The West California group and the Cali group in general playing quite a lot of events. An event happening in Rio Normandy in France. Good stuff. I read that very poorly when I just read that there. Tourney Menstrual War Lotus. I thought that said menstrual. And yeah, you don't want that. War Lotus in Granada, Spain. We've got an event happening in Gdansk, Poland. The Gdansk group putting an event on. This is Individual in Mitrovic. No, that's not Mitrovic. Mistrozosha. I'm butchering. Oh wow, it's actually a decent event. 16. I reckon they've got more than that. 15 people already for a 16-player event. Wow, amazing. Love to see it. Poland, man. Poland just blowing the. That's 2 weeks away. I've just completely gone over the limit. So what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 events this week. Tried to count as we went through. Got distracted. 9 events, and that one's next week. Watch out for the Welsh GT. Things will be really good. If those players, I mean, if I was, I don't know lists or anything like that yet. But if I was to put my money on someone winning, obviously Carlo. Attending. Someone's literally signed up in the literally why we've been having this discussion. Amazing. So there are 29 people by the looks of it in attendance potentially. My money's on Carlo winning the event. Of course, I wouldn't not give Carlo the odds. But yeah, there's some other players up there who might do quite well. And I really hope the event goes really well. Jacob's there, isn't he? Jacob might run something that causes a bit of headache for people. But yeah, really hope that goes well. Really hope everyone's games go really well this week, guys. All the best to all games and all things going on. I'll be back next week, hopefully with the guys from Wales, talk about how their event went. And yeah, take it easy, guys. Have a good one. Best of luck in all your games, and I'll see you next week.
Ready? Aim!
There's too many!
Anyone see my mammoth?
Stubby!